Hi, this is Alessio. Hope you're well. In this video, we're going to take a look at a potentially dangerous sell signal which could trigger very soon on the markets. And I'm going to explain to you what I think could potentially happen next on the major stock markets. By the way, before I do that, let me mention a few important things. Firstly, as I'm sure you noticed on Friday, the mainstream financial media, they ramped up the drama. They completely overblown this massive drama about the markets, as I'm sure you noticed. Let me just play a few clips just to show you what I mean. By the way, it wasn't just CNN and MSNBC. It was also Fox News did the exact same thing. Let me play a few clips.
Markets were initially shaken by China, if you remember, announcing retaliatory tariffs. But things really took a turn after the US President Donald Trump tweeted that he is ordering, he said, US companies to find an alternative to doing business in China.
Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Brett Baer. Breaking tonight, serious punching and counterpunching taking place right now in what has become a full-fledged trade war between the U.S. and China.
Even as the markets tanked, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average spending the day hundreds of points in the negative, the president kept tweeting.
So guys, as you heard there on that video, and I said this before, I'm going to say it again, this is the number one reason why I never pay attention to anything the financial mainstream media says. And I'm sure you understand why. Because anytime the markets go down, they overblow the drama and they completely misunderstand what's really going on in the markets. So anytime the markets drop, the financial mainstream media keeps doing the exact same thing. Oh, the markets are dropping. Oh, let's panic because the markets are dropping. Actually, I can't do the sarcastic voice really well, but I do know somebody who can.
The market! Yes, the market!
All right, guys. So bottom line is, let me explain to you 3 reasons why the financial news media has got it completely wrong when it comes to the markets and why they're clueless when it comes to the markets. And then, of course, we'll take a look at the major charts. You see, the mainstream media has a dangerous and false bias when it comes to the markets. And that bias is not what you probably think it is. The false and dangerous bias the mainstream media has is that they think the market is not allowed to go down. The media seems to think that the market is only allowed to go up. In other words, guys, the financial mainstream media seems to think, wrongly, that up is good, down is bad. That's basically it. Up is good, down is bad. Now, any professional trader and investor knows this, and I'm sure you know this too, that is absolutely fundamentally false. The truth is, and any professional investor can tell you this, that when the market goes down, it creates buying opportunities. You see, guys, take a look at this chart, for example. The 2008 recession and the big market crash, when the market fell 50%, that created a massive buying opportunity right there. And of course, a massive bull market as well. And since the bull market started, any major drop, anytime the markets have dropped 10 to 20%, like you see here, we can see a massive buying opportunity arise. Markets drop, they go up. Markets drop, they bounce back, they go up. Markets drop 10, 20%. Again, a buying opportunity, they go back up. And guess what, guys? At some point in the next few years, we're going to have a pretty massive bear market. We're going to have a pretty massive, nasty drop, which could eventually lead to something close to the 2008 recession. And when that happens, yes, that would also become another buying opportunity. And that's not all, guys. The second reason why the mainstream media is wrong is because if the stock market were only to go up in one direction, let's say the markets only went in one direction, the direction the mainstream media wants it to go, which is only up. Well, guess what? When things like that happen, when the markets only go up like this, you can see here, that creates massively dangerous bubbles which eventually burst. Whenever any market becomes extremely expensive, eventually things like this happen, like the year 2000 dot-com crash, when the markets drop by about 83%. And by the way, when the markets do drop like that, when they massively drop like that, that also creates another buying opportunity. The same thing happened in the year 2007. We had a dangerous bubble in both the stock markets and also in the housing market. And of course, that also eventually collapsed and crashed and also created another buying opportunity. The same thing is true with the other markets, not just stock markets, but also Bitcoin. Any market, whenever it goes parabolic, whenever it goes in a continuously upward direction, eventually becomes a bubble and eventually that market bursts, just like it happened in Bitcoin, just like it happens in every other market as well. So bottom line is this, guys. Is the market in a bubble right now? Yes, it is. If you listen to any major economist, Robert Shiller, John Hussman, they all will tell you the same thing. The markets have been in a bubble now for many years. Just look at where we are right now in relation to the 2007 market top before it crashed. We are significantly higher. In fact, the markets have been in a bubble even before President Trump took office, which, by the way, comes to my third point, which is the mainstream media has got it completely wrong by blaming President Trump for what's happening in the stock markets. Again, I explained this in my previous video. This is not political. The fact is the stock markets have been in a bubble now for many years, even before President Trump took office. And whenever anything becomes a bubble, eventually bubbles burst. By the way, guys, do yourself a favor and read these two fantastic books on financial markets. The great book by Michael Koval called The Complete Turtle Trader and Fooled by Randomness by Nassim Taleb. Both these authors stress the point that you cannot explain market behavior and market movement simply by looking at the news. The news does not explain why the markets moved in a specific way on that day, which is why most traders do not care what the news is. Now, let's go back to our chart here on the S&P. Here's why I think the stock markets could be about to fall even further lower. I've been bearish now on the stock markets from really over here when the S&P was above the 3,000 level, especially been following our member videos. And you will notice how the markets bounced back to the 21 daily moving average. And notice how they got rejected from the 21 daily moving average. Anytime you see the markets getting rejected from the 21 daily moving average, that is a sign of weakness in the markets, and it's showing that the markets are more likely to potentially fall further lower. We do have a trend line, by the way, that's developing here. Let me just draw the trend line using a different color. So as you will see here, we have this trend line right now through here. You can see on Friday, the markets just paused on that trend line. I think potentially in the next few days, in the next few weeks perhaps, we could see the stock market, the S&P, breaking this trend line and falling further lower. So that's the number one thing I'm waiting for. I want to see if the markets break this trend line, and if we can break this support level here near 2820. That's number one thing I'm looking for. The second thing I'm paying attention to is the Dow Transportation Index. I've mentioned this before. This is an important leading indicator. So as you can see here, the Dow Transportation has come down to this important supporting level, and I think we could see this line, this level, being broken, and potentially we might close below it very soon. So put it this way, if the stock market, indeed, if the Dow Transportation Index, if it breaks below this, if it closes below 9,700, then brace for impact, because we could be heading potentially further lower on the major stock markets. So here's the bottom line. If the S&P and the Dow Transportation Index see more follow through lower this week, especially if we break this trend line, and if we take out these prior lows near 28.15 on the S&P, then we could see the Dow Theory sell signal becoming triggered. I've already explained the Dow Theory sell signal before in previous videos. If the Dow Theory sell signal gets triggered, we could see significantly lower levels on the S&P. By the way, there are some market timers who believe that the Dow Theory sell signal has already been triggered already. But the bottom line is this, guys. If the markets continue to fall lower, get ready for the mainstream media to once again get on their high horse and start ramping up the rhetoric. Oh, the markets are dropping. Again, I can't do the sarcastic voice, but Kyle, please help me out.
Ooh! What has the market dictated to us today, good sir?